Hey guys, welcome to part 2 on creating an instant messaging application. In this part, we're going to focus on building a view that will display the users that are currently logged into the chatting application. We're still currently working on a group chatting system where we're not going into private chatting yet and building a friends list that will be later on. We're still working with our group chat from part 1, but now we're just going to display all the people that are currently logged in, and if they log out, then they'll be removed from the view so everyone that's in chat knows who they're talking to. Let's first just start by running the application from part 1 and see where we left off. So let's go ahead and start this up. We have our server running, and this is just one client. I want to open up another client. So here's another client. So on the first client, I'm going to log in as Jesse. And I logged in. And then on the second client, I'm going to log in as Bob. So as you can see in this lesson, what I want to focus on, right now we don't know who's logged into the chat program. We only know, I know that Jesse and Bob because I'm both of them, but what if someone else logged in? I have no notification saying that someone logged in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to build a little rectangle on the right that just shows all the people that are currently logged in. But just like from last time, we can write a message and then we can send it over the internet to our clients like this. So I can say hello, and if Bob says hello, now it says you and Bob. So all the text is correct and we're sending a message over the internet. Okay, so before we get started in actually building the view to show who's logged in, I want to add something to the server. Right now, in our server, we have a login function which adds them to our dictionary of people who are logged in. But now what I want to do is I want to build a log off function so when someone hits the exit button on the program, we'll just call log out or log off or something, and then it will remove them from the dictionary, because if they're in the dictionary and they close the program, we could have some problems when we're trying to send that person a message, because the server will still think that the player is logged in. So let's first start by, in the service contract, let's go ahead and add a log out function for them to call. So we'll say operation contract void log out, and that's all we need for the log out. Now back in the service implementation, I'm going to go ahead and implement the interface, and that will go ahead and implement the logout function. Now before I actually get into this, I want to build a helper function, and this helper function, its purpose of this helper function is to get the connected client, the class that we use to represent a client on the service. We want to get that of the person who's making the call. So whoever's saying log out the client, we need to know his username to actually log him out, because the key is a string and the string is the username. So we need to know the username of the person that is logging out to actually log out. Now we could have them pass in their username to the log out function, and then we could just use that. But I want to use this helper function because we will use it in the future anyway. So I just want to design it now. The helper function is basically just going to get my client. So I'm going to call it public. It's going to return a connected client. I want to say public connected client get my client. And inside get my client, a couple things are going to happen. Inside of the login function, we use this right here, this line, which is really cool. var establish user connection equals operation context dot current dot get callback channel. So this line gets the callback channel, which is iClient. That's how we represent the callback channel, or the callback. So it gets that of whoever is calling this function. So whoever is calling login, that's what we're getting. So I'm going to use that line inside of this. This is going to be helpful. So that's the first line. Now I'm just going to use a little link query to query over. Now there's many ways. I could just use a for each loop if I wanted to. Actually, maybe I should use a for each loop. That might just be a little bit easier to understand. But I could use link also, but I will use a for each now that I'm thinking about it. It's a little bit easier. So I want to iterate over the people that are connected, and I'm going to try to match this established user connection with one of the people that are connected, and that will give us a match of who is actually calling this, and then we can get their username because everything is stored into this concurrent dictionary. So I want to say for each var client, or I'm going to say for clients in, actually no, for each var client in connected clients. So that's all my clients. I'm going to say if the client dot value, because it's a dictionary, if his connection is equal to established user connection, that means this person is the person who called it. Now, if we go through the whole thing, that means that they're not in the actual collection. So if we get down to here, I'm going to say return null. So this will mean that they are not in the collection, but they are most likely always going to be in the connection, but this is just in case. This is for security. Because this is the person, and the person who's calling it is checking it, so we should always be able to find it. So I'm saying if they're not in here, return null. If they are in here, that we'll know that if they're in here by this being true, then we'll just return this value. So we'll return client.value because that client.value is a connected client. So this will get my client. So this iterates over all the clients connected. We match the connection based off of the person who is calling this connection. So this gets the caller's connection. If they match, that means we found our person. Return his connected client to whoever wants it by calling get my client. So inside of logout, this is where it happens. So I'm going to say connected client, my client or client equals get my client. I'm going to say if client is not equal to null. That's just that security check right there because I do return null if he's not in it. So now we have that. Now we're going to attempt to remove this person from our concurrent dictionary. That's the point of the log out. So I'm going to say connected clients dot try to remove. Now this takes in a key, and the return value comes out as an out parameter. So we need something to hold that. So I'm going to say connected client removed client. So that's that. Now when I call try remove, I need to pass in the key. The key is their username. So I'm going to say client.username because that's how we designed it. And I'm going to say out removed client. So the removed client will be the person that gets removed. Now that I did that, this will hopefully remove them. And after that, I'm going to just display some output, but I'm also going to add this to the login as well. I'm going to display some output to the console that just says that this person logged off. So the server, if anyone's monitoring the server, they can see who's logging in and who's logging off. So in this, I'm going to just change the color of the console by saying console.foreground color equals console color. I'm just going to pick a color. Then I'm going to console.writeLine, and I'm going to say client log off. I'm going to pass in their name and at what time they logged off. Then I'm going to pass in the parameters that we need to fill in these temp variables right here. So I'm going to pass in the username, so removed client.username. And then I'm going to pass in the time, so I'm going to say system.datetime.now. So I'm going to pass in those things, and we should get a little message. And then the last thing, I'll finish off by just resetting the color of the console. So that's our little message there. Now I want to add this message to login as well. So I'm going to copy this to our login. So this is where the person logs in. And return 0 means there was a successful login. So to do this, I'm just going to take the new client dot username. At what time? I'm going to say log in, and I'm going to change this to a green. So that's our log in and now our log off. So everything looks like it should be good now. We still haven't did anything with displaying who's logged in. We just built the log out function. So now inside our client, in our main window, I want to make it that when this window is closing, meaning someone hit the exit button, I'm going to also reset this text while I'm here. So what I'm going to do is if someone hits the exit button, I'm going to log them off of the program. So to do this, I'm just going to select the main window, and then I'm going to go to is closing, meaning the window is closing. And then when it's closing, I'm just going to say server dot log out, and that's all I need to do. So let's go ahead and run this program and test what happens now. So we have our server. Let me go ahead and grab another client. So we have two clients now. The first client, I'm going to now watch the server. We should get our messages. Let's log in as Jesse on the first client. So log in, you're logged in, and we can see on the server we have a client login, Jesse, at what time. So we logged in successfully to the server, and it says welcome Jesse. Then I'm going to log in as Bob. You logged in. I'm going to remove that pop-up here in a second. But now client login Bob. So we're both successfully logged in, and we could start chatting. Now before I chat, I don't really care about chatting right now. I'm going to log out on one of them. So if I hit exit on Jesse, it should display the logout message on the server. As you can see, I closed it, and it says client log off Jesse. And it knew it was Jesse because of the algorithm that we wrote in the service. We did this by get my client. This helper function that we built allows us to, it knows that we're removing Jesse because of basically this line. That's the most important line out of this. And then we just display our message, our little log off message. Now if I log off of Bob, the same thing will happen. It will know it's Bob, and then I'll get that Bob message. So now we have the clients logging in and logging off. That log off is important because remember I said, what if I just closed my program but the server still thought that the person was logged in? It would try to send that person messages when other people were communicating, and that could lead to problems. So this makes sure that they get removed from the dictionary so that the server doesn't think that they're still logged in anymore. Okay, so now that we did that, the next thing that I want to do is on the client, I want to build a little section on the right hand side. Maybe I'm probably going to make it bigger, the window. Keep this all the same size. I could shrink this actually. Maybe I will shrink it a little bit. But this window on the right hand side is going to be like a list box or something. And that's just going to be responsible for it's to be responsible for showing who's currently logged in and who's currently logged off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up in Expression Blend, that program we used in part 1 to do some editing, just to edit in that little box that we need. Okay, so I'm here in Expression Blend now, and like I said, I'm going to add that thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just shrink this a little bit. Let's move this over. This is our welcome label. I'm going to shrink this a little bit. Shrink this. Actually, let's bring it down to like there, so we can keep it the same size, the window. Now, in the real world, you can build this however you want. It does not matter. I'm just trying to get everything on it so that we can use it to mess around. Okay. So now over on this right-hand side, we made some room, and we're gonna put in let's use a list box. I think that will work. So we'll add a little list box here that will go down. Right there, I'm going to put a label just so we can see what this is. Inside the label, it's just going to say, logged or current users, and I'll just say users. People who are currently logged in. Let's increase that font size a little bit. So now let's go ahead and give this list box a name, and I'm going to call it users list box. I wonder if I should keep it the same size as this. Okay, it doesn't really matter how you design it. So these are our users in here now. So now we do that, let's go back to Visual Studio, and we're going to replace it, and we'll see those changes right there. I should probably make this a little bit bigger. That's better. Okay. So now before we start getting into some coding with this, on the server, we need to implement a function. This function's job is going to be to update the users. We're going to have a helper function also. This job, though, is going to be to update the users on either a login or a log off. Now, we could build two separate functions for user log off, user log in, or we can just make one called update user or something like that. And that we could pass in a parameter like either on or off that will represent if they're logging on or off. Now, this isn't going to be designed. This function is not going to be designed in this class. Our helper function will be designed in here, but that will not be in the service contract. The main one is going to be getting designed in the client, in their client callback. So we'll create a function in here saying get update or something like that. So let's go ahead and go into our iClient. This is our client contract. And we're going to say we have a new operation contract. And it's going to say void get update. And it's going to take in we could do an integer to represent it, a string. We can say we'll pass in an integer. And this will be the value. A 0 will represent a login, and a 1 will represent a log off. That's how we'll update the client, by either removing their name to the view or adding their name to their view. So now we have that. We'll have to implement this in iClient in the callback. So I'll just implement that, and we'll get back to that in a second. Inside of the client's chatting service, we'll have to create a helper function that we can just call so that both login and log off can call, and they'll pass in their parameters. So I'm going to say private void, I'm going to call it update helper. It's going to take in that int value once again. Okay, so in our int helper, it's going to be very similar to our send message to all. So let's go ahead and copy this and then paste this into our update helper. This is going to change, and instead of that, we're just going to say client.value connection, and we're going to say get update. The connection is going to get update, and we're going to pass in the value. And I completely forgot something. I feel very stupid. We also need to pass in the string, the username of the person that is being removed. So let's go ahead and iClient fix that. I forgot. We need the username of the person so that we can actually remove them and know which person to remove on the client. So this is going to take in a string username. Okay. So that's our update helper. So now inside of log out, remember I said 1 is going to be a log out. So after we display or remove it, we're going to say update helper. We're going to pass in the 1 for the log out, and then the removed client username. That's the person we're removing. And then we're going to do a similar thing in log in. So when they get added, a 0 instead, that's for a log in, and we're going to pass in just the username. Now, before I move on, I want to also, inside of our helper, I want to add a one check that I don't want to send the update to the person who is logging in or logging off. And I think we'll have to double check. I don't remember. The reason why I want to add this check-in is because I think we will have problems in the long run. But I will test it on video to see if we will or not. But right now I'm going to add the check-in. And I'm not going to send the update to them, so we'll have to do that a different way, and we'll do that here in a second when we get past the client. But what I want to do is I'm going to say if client dot value dot username dot toLower is not equal to username dot toLower. So if it's not the person that's logging in or logging off, then we'll send them the update. That's just a security check that we'll make sure. I think it will cause a problem if we don't have that. I'm not positive, so we'll check it out. So I think that's it for now on the on the server. So now for the client, there are many ways that we could do this. We could use data binding to have everything represented in all different ways. But I don't want to introduce more topics and new things that I don't need to implement. But yes, there are better ways to do this than you are going to see. There are more efficient ways on doing this. But I'm just going to do a very simple way, and we're just going to use loops to iterate over it to see who to remove and add. But there are more efficient ways to do this. Just keep that in mind. So inside the client callback, this is where we're going to actually make the calls to the main window, similar to like this. And this will change over time when we add more windows and stuff like that. But we're going to make a call like that, so we need to build some functions in our main window. So we're going to have two functions. And we could have one function, two. We could break it up. I'm just going to break it into two functions to make it easier to read. The first one is going to be public void add user to list, we'll say. And that will be their string username. And then the other one will be public void remove user from list. And this is obviously if the person logs in or logs off. So for the add one, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that they already are not in the list, just in case something happened or they're getting added twice. It shouldn't ever happen, but just in case it does, I don't think it's possible, but it's always good to just add in security checks. Alright, I think we should be able to use the contains method. I don't think we'll need to use a loop for this. If we do, we'll have to change it. So we're going to say if the user list box items dot contains the username, then just return, and I'm not going to do anything. So that means they're already in there. That's just the security check. So if they're not in it, that means we'll reach it to this point. If they're not in the list, we'll add them to it. So we'll say user list box dot items add username. So then we'll add them to our lists. Now, in the remove, we want to make sure we're going to do the same exact thing, but we want to make sure that they are in it. So if they are in the, instead of returning, we're then just going to remove them. So user list box dot items dot remove. We're going to remove the username. So we may have to make some changes. I don't know. I'm doing this all from my head. This should work. So now inside of our callback, we're going to implement this, and now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little switch on the value. We're going to say if it's case 0, that means it's going to be a login. So if it's a login, we want to call this code dot add user to list, and then their username will just pass in. We'll copy this. This is if it's a log off the one, so then we'll remove the user from the list. And that's our get update function. So I think everything should be set up for that. So login calls it, log off. That's our update helper. So I'm going to first test it with 2 clients. I have this check-in so the person will not receive the update. If it works, I'll add it back in. If not, let's just see what happens. So let's run the program. So we have our client, our server. Let's get another client. So let's log in with this Jesse. Oh, this is going to be hard to see. We'll work through this, don't worry. So we'll log in with Jesse, and we're logged in. So far, it does not update ourselves, so we see that. Now, when I log in on this, I'm not going to see it on here, but Bob should appear on Jesse's list. So let's see what happens. Yes, so I log in, and now Bob is appearing on Jesse's list. So I need to see what happens. Let's keep it this way, and then we're just going to add a new function in here in a second. So right now, when we log in, it's sort of working. We're not there yet. Let's add another one. Let's have test log in. And now test should appear on both of their lists. So yeah, test and test. If I log off on test, let's see what happens with that. They both get removed from their list. So it's sort of working, not 100% yet. Let's get it working better. So inside my update, we're doing that don't update the person themselves. So what we need to do to fix that is when the person logs in and it's a successful login, we're going to make them do another call. And that call is going to say get active users or get current users. And that will just return, we'll just return a list of string of all the current users. So let's go ahead and iChatting service. Let's build another function. Operation contract list of string get current users. That's all we need. Let's go ahead and implement this. Now all this is going to do is list of actually to be more efficient. I don't know. It's going to be logged in anyway. Yeah, let's just do okay. Let's say list of string, and this is our list of users. So list of users. And then we'll say for each var client in connected clients, list of users dot add client dot value dot username. So we add them in, and then we're just going to return list of users back to the person who's calling. So now back in our client, let's go back to our client. Wrong one. When they log in, so this is our successful login. We'll get the welcome message. We set all of this. Let's then say server dot get current users. Now we're not going to do it like this. We're going to pass this into a helper. So we're going to create a helper on the client. We're going to say private void load user list, and it's going to take in a list of string users. And all we're going to do is for each var user in users, add user to list user. So this is a helper function that's going to call those. So now we'll just say, what is the function? Load user list, passing in this. So this will load our users. So now, let's see what happens now. Ooh, I have a client running. So there's my server, client. Let's get another client running. So let's log in with Jesse and see what happens. So Jesse, we can see the users now. We see the Jesse there properly. Let's log in with Bob. Now Bob will get Jesse and Bob, those people logged in. And then this guy over here, since I'm not going to get the update because I'm calling it, this guy is going to get the Bob login message. So let's see what happens. Log in. Now Bob is here. Bob is there. Everything is accurate. The messages can be sent properly. Let's get another client logged in. Let's see how many clients we can get going before I run out of space. So let's log in with test. We get my users over here. Now everyone got updated on their users over here. So test is logged in. Let's get another one. Frank is logged in. Everyone's updated with who's logged in. Let's try to do two more. Henry, log in. Everyone see Henry, see everything's there. And then Tom is our last guy. So we have 6 clients. Everyone is updated. Everyone knows who's in. If I send a message, hello, to everyone, all my 6 clients are getting the message. Everything is working really nicely. It's displaying who's sending it for every one of my clients. Now this is the fun part when we start logging off. So I'm going to log off on the ones that you can't see. So I'm closing right now Henry. Henry got removed from everyone's list. Now I'm closing Tom. Tom got removed. Let's close Jesse. Jesse got removed from everyone's list. Let's close Bob. So these are 2 people left. They're still working fine. The messages on the server are being displayed, the log off messages. Let's close this. And then the last person, Frank. Everyone logged on and logged off. Everything seems to be working fine. So that is going to be it for this video, I think. We got working logging in, logging off, displaying messages. We have a new user display that shows who is currently logged in, and when they log off, we remove them from there. Everything seems to be working really well with that. Everything seems to be working really well. And now, this is just for perfect situations. Obviously, there's still problems in this code deep down. When people lose internet connection, a lot of it could be a little slow at times, stuff like that we can fix. But this is just an intro to building this application. So that's it for this video. I think in the next one, part 3, we're going to look at attaching a database to our server and building user accounts. That they can create an account, and then they can log into the application with a password and username. And then that will connect them to the actual application, the chatting application. So that'll be the next part. Then after that, maybe we'll start looking at friends list and private messaging. We'll see where we have to go from after that. Maybe part 4 will actually be displaying like a typing message, like saying Bob is currently typing or Jeff is currently typing. Having those type of messages that current modern chatting applications have. So this is part 2. Part 3 will be the logging in, probably. Maybe that will be the typing. I don't know yet. But if you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe and be sure to stay tuned for more videos. Thanks.